whenever we had this broken heart, this double-mindedness, and hope has been deferred. How does Jesus take care of that? Is there a place in Scripture? Is there an example of this? How does Jesus actually do this? What would it look like if Jesus did this? So, is there a place in Scripture? Is there an example of this? How does Jesus actually do this? What would it look like if Jesus did this? Well, man, Jesus just showed me a Scripture where he did this. And this is a picture of what he does for all of us. Whenever we had this broken heart, this double-mindedness, and hope has been deferred, how does Jesus take care of that? How does he get us back on track and heal our broken heart? Man, I just want to show you. How does he restore hope? I just want to show you. Luke 24. And it talks about, this is after Jesus died. And it's the third day. Some of the disciples went to the tomb and they saw that Jesus wasn't there, but they couldn't figure out what had gone on. And some of the women went to the tomb and they'd said that they'd seen an angel that said that Jesus had risen. And one of them had actually seen Jesus. Mary Magdalene had seen Jesus and said that he'd risen, and to tell the others, and to tell Peter, And here's these two disciples. They're leaving Jerusalem. They're on their way to Emmaus, and they're on this road down to Emmaus. They're walking down it. And they're heartbroken. They're confused. They're sad because they have these two things in their heart. They have the truth, and they have doubt and unbelief. And it's going back and forth in their heart. And it said, and behold, two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other, and all these things which had taken place. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. Now, why were their eyes prevented from recognizing him? I used to think before, well, man, it's because, Jesus looked different physically. There was something there in Jesus' newly resurrected body where they couldn't recognize him. Now, maybe that's true. I'm not discounting that. I don't know. But something here that I really feel like Jesus pointed out to me when I was reading this is because, there's a verse here that Jesus says on the Sermon on the Mount. It said, "Blessed are the pure in heart." And we talked about having a pure heart, right? A heart of one mind, right? Single-minded, just trusting in Jesus, seeing Jesus' trustworthiness, and from seeing that, having faith produced through it, right? And in him alone. The pure, blessed, happy to be envied are the pure in heart. Why? Because they will see God. Wow. So it's almost like when you have these two minds in your heart, it's like it's bringing your sight out of focus, and you can't even see God for who he is in your situation. Now, they saw Jesus. It's not that they didn't see him. They acknowledged him. They talked to him. They heard what his question. They didn't recognize Jesus. They didn't recognize that that's who that was. They didn't recognize that he had risen from the dead. They didn't realize that. And so because they didn't realize that, they were still brokenhearted. And it's so funny because they're telling Jesus, don't you know what's going on? Where have you been? Have you been hiding under a rock? Can't believe this, Let's tell you about this. Jesus, we thought that he was going to save us, but he was crucified. And now we're hearing these tales about people coming and saying that he's risen from the dead. We don't know what to think. And they're telling it to Jesus. They couldn't see it. They didn't have their heart. They weren't partaking in that pure heart that Jesus had already given them. And that's another thing I want to encourage you with today. Jesus, it says, that he has given us a new heart. And he's written his laws on our heart, the heart of flesh. He's taken out that heart of stone. So, man, how come when we're believers we're still dealing with this kind of double-mindedness? Well, we don't partake of that new heart of flesh when we're not trusting Jesus again. we're just not receiving his inheritance. And part of that inheritance is for us, and it's to have that heart of flesh that can see him for who he is. So that's why they were kept from seeing him. Maybe there is that resurrected body too. I'm not discounting that at all. That could very well be a possibility. But I really think there's a more core and root issue here that he wants us to see, and it's because their hearts were double-minded. They were going back and forth. They were vacillating between God and the world, between the cosmos, all the things they could see around them, that he died and that nobody really raises from the dead, and we'd hoped in him, and that, you know, and then, you know, we'd heard that he'd risen from the dead. I guess he'd told us before that he would do that, but it sounded crazy, you know, and we don't know what to think. We're confused, you know. Man, when you're confused, it's because there's a double-mindedness. There's two minds going on in your heart, and there's a brokenheartedness that's occurring, because whenever there's a mixture, it makes it hard to receive God's grace. Faith gets tripped up on the way. Okay, you can't totally run full ways into Jesus and trusting and going into his arms and receiving his gift. You think there's strings attached to it. And when Jesus comes near, you know, when we see him for who he is, you know, it gets rid of all that, and we'll come running. He's so good. And so, okay, where were we at? Okay, their eyes were prevented from recognizing him, and he said to them, "What are these words that you were exchanging with one another as you were walking?" And they stood still, looking sad. Why were they sad? Again, because they didn't have that pure heart that just heard Jesus and said, "I'm going to raise from the dead, guys. Don't worry about it. You know, this has to happen. Don't worry about it. I'll be back." They were vacillating. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even been sad. They've been looking for Jesus. They've been expecting him to show up. And they may have even seen him and maybe even I wonder if this is Jesus talking to us. They might have just seen him right when he came along and rejoiced. But look at this. Okay. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem and unaware of the things which have happened here in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And he said to him, "The things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty indeed, word in the sight of God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to descendants of death and crucified him. But we were hoping," see, there's that hope again. "We were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel indeed. Beside all this, it is the third day since these things happened." And you got to understand, in that culture, the third day, if someone was dead and it was the third day, that was it. There's a belief then that even when somebody died, that the first day or two, you know, that spirit was hovering around the body, and there's still an opportunity for them to maybe wake up from the dead and rise from the dead. But man, once that third day was done, man, they were dead. That was it. There was no coming back from that. And that was dead. Okay, you bury him, you forget about it, you know. And so they're saying that, and now we know he's dead. We know he's dead. It's been past the time he's dead, and so they're basically saying how hopeless the situation is and why they're so sad is what's really going on here. Okay, so but we were hoping that he who was going to redeem, it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, it is the third day since these things happened. But also some women among us amazed us when they were at the tomb early in the morning. They did not find his body. They came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just exactly as the women also had said, but him they did not see. And he said to them, "O foolish men, and slow of heart, to believe in all that the prophets had spoken. Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter into his glory?" Then beginning with Moses, with all the prophets, he explained to them the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. Now, what is Jesus doing here? First, he approaches them. He's near to the brokenhearted. He comes near. And we see that in the Psalms. It says, Psalms 34:18, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves all who are crushed in spirit." And in Psalm 147, verse 2 and 3, it also talks about brokenheartedness. And it says of Jesus, of the Lord, it says he gathers the outcast of Israel. And what was happening? They were leaving Israel, right? They were feeling dejected, sad, right? And he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Wow. So this is what Jesus did. He came near. He came near to them on the road, and he began to speak to them and ask them, why are you sad? Why are you sad? What Jesus doesn't say, he says, there's no reason for you to be sad. Why are you sad? And he says, didn't you realize that all the prophets, everything you guys have learned already, had said this was going to happen? And what does he do? He starts from Moses, the books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, all the books in the Old Testament, all the prophets. And he starts bringing out the gospel that is inside those books, how it speaks about Jesus. And it says that, look, I believe he said it without saying it. It's like, of course Jesus is the one. Look, he fulfilled this and he fulfilled that. And this prophet said that this was going to happen to him, that he was going to have to suffer at the hands of sinful men, that he would die, but he'd rise on the third day so that he could enter into his glory. You guys shouldn't be sad. You should be expecting to see him. You should be rejoicing. He's going to be rise from the dead. He's bringing them the good news. And what he's doing is, just like James says, he's purifying their heart. He's taking out that double mind of the world that's causing doubt to entrust in Jesus and what he's said. And he's removing all that out of there. He's clearing it out. He's cleaning house. He's pushing it out of doors. He's pushing all that fear out so that love can dwell there. And he's closing the door on it. And he's saying, and he's making it clear for them so that they can see God as he is. That he's going to rise. That really to start looking for him now. That he's risen. The reason he's not in the tomb, the reason the angels came, the reason that the stone was even rolled away was to show he's not there. He's risen. He's alive. I love it. That's how Jesus starts healing a broken heart. That's how he starts cleansing the two minds. He draws close. And they humble themselves. They hear what he has to say and they start letting it come in. I love it. It's so beautiful. He's so good to us, each and every one of us. And he'll do it with all of us. It doesn't matter even if you're saved or not saved. He does it. If you're not saved, he's coming to tell you that what he's done for you and that it's finished and you can put your trust in him. And if you are saved and you know him, man, he's coming again just to clear out all that stuff from the world that's saying you can't trust him. He's not going to come through for you. He has come through for you. See what he's done for you. Don't believe that garbage. Just hear him. Just hear Jesus. It's such good news, guys. And this is his ministry. This is part of what Jesus has been anointed to do. I love it.